Artist comes from the audience, and every artist has something to say and a way to do so. Whether the messages for themselves or for somebody else is not part of their duty. An artist knows what the audience needs because he was part of it before, and an artist has a need to put voice into their thoughts. And of course, there are always different points of view, and that equals new artists being born over time.
Art is a very powerful thing. It has the profound ability to inspire others and make the audience feel a connection to the art. It is also a very useful tool to spread awareness and send a message. Of course, the message can be interpreted in different ways, but the truth is, the impact of what art has does not entirely rely on the artists themselves. It also involves the audience, since they are the ones that give it meaning.
So we change of opinion, and this time we think that art is ephemeral. So what we interpret for art and the meaning of art itself, it changes constantly, and the effect the impact that it has in the audience is a secondary thing. It's meaningless as it changes all the time. So at the end, art is ephemeral.
In the last two debates, we were talking about that the artist knew what the audience needed, or that art was ephemeral. But what if we find out that there's a middle point between these two? It depends on the artist. We had developed the statement that this position of telling the audience what to think will depend on the artist. Sometimes the artist will have really clearly what he wants to say, and some others will not, and will leave it to the audience. Also, art is ephemeral. Art is continually changing, and that means that maybe the context change the meaning of the painting or sculpture.
Okay, so according to Jacques Martin, there are different types of artists, and since there are different types of artists, every single one of them gives their art a different meaning, depending on whatever it is they are trying to achieve. Some artists are looking just for money or to obtain knowledge, skill, and endurance, or for liberal study. So, therefore, art does have a purpose, and it is given by the artist, depending on whatever it is they are looking for with their art.
To the audience, it's really not important, or they're not really important, because to them, every time, depending on every person, the meaning changes. This is why you can't really define it in any way, since its meaning is changing depending on who is listening.
Okay, so taking the movie Ex Machina as an example and basing my arguments on it, you can see that in the movie, Ava, the robot that is built, is trying to be an imitation of reality or humans. And it is a perfect example of art imitating reality. And also, towards the end of the movie, Ava escapes the house and kills Nathan, and Caleb runs away, is trapped inside of the house, even though what Nathan intended to do was erase her memory. So that is also like an example of how even though an artist or someone else can intend for art to be something or for it to have a specific purpose, that will most likely not be the case, and the art will find a purpose of its own.
This is our third argument. Throughout history, art has been used as a way to create an impact. To be a part of this impact comes with a lot of responsibility on both ends, the artist and the audience. An example of this would be director Stanley Kubrick. His movie A Color Orange had a really big impact on the audience since it was a movie about ultraviolence. They decided to recreate some of the scenes in the movie and it caused a lot of crime. So even though he was on his right to express himself and create, the audience is responsible for their own actions. They will need to be aware of the consequences and the power art has over society. So just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Okay, so up to this point we can see that Moore's idea of art purpose and the opinion of Wilde contradict each other. And well, we can understand that if we see it from an Aristotelic point of view, they complement each other. One talks about the time lapse and how the art is ephemeral, that's Wilde's perspective. And the other one talks about the purpose of the artist and how the audience will interact with it. But Aristotle says that we learn from repetition. So an artist that repeats something gives a purpose to the art, making it something for it to learn for himself. The thing is that from Wilde's perspective, the audience will not have this part of having a purpose with art, because the only thing that art will do is to be there. And it depends on how they see it and how they feel, what will be the lesson that that piece of art will teach them.
For our counter-argument, we are going to answer the question of, does it matter? To answer this, we're taking the perspective of existentialism. And what they said was that we don't really know whether things are real or not, whether things truly have a purpose or not, whether everything we're doing is useless or not, like as Aristotle said, or is art just an imitation that we learn from, or is art meant to show yourself to someone, or whatever it is. We won't ever truly have an answer. But what existentialism says is that it only matters, or things only matter if you choose for them to do so. If they apply to you, if you are authentic to yourself, then that's what it matters. So if for you the purposes of art is just an imitation, then that's what's true for you, and that's the meaning it has. But if for you art is just a way of expression or a way you put yourself out to the world, then that's what applies to you, and that's your own meaning. That's the meaning you give to art, and it's what's authentic to yourself, which is the only way that this question of what is the purpose of art will actually matter.
Okay, so in the end, an artist's only purpose is that of creating art. Anything else that is a consequence of that art being created is only a side effect and not actually its true purpose. And when it comes to art itself, its only meaning is to exist beautifully as art. It doesn't have any other purpose, even though we can give it a different purpose. And its only real one is to exist.
Okay, so following Daniela's question about does it really matter, she said that each individual gives the meaning to the perception of art, and we found that art is a very complex thing. The concept of art, artist, audience, and even purpose is a complex thing. We cannot fit them into categories because it's something that changes throughout every person. The artist has the freedom to choose for what reason he's doing art, and the interpretation that we give them only exists in our imagination, in our self. So yes, in the previous debates we had a point, but at the end it's combined. It depends whether you actually want for the audience to see themselves, or if the artist wants to do it for another reason. And this is changes, and at the end art is important, but we cannot.
So for the SWOT analysis, we thought about what our strengths are, and we believe that our strengths are that we have really strong debaters in our team that know how to expose what they believe really well. So we had really strong thesis statements, and then the arguments are really well thought in order to support what we're saying on our thesis. And these skills evolved because we had to refine them over the course of the 3 debates that we did. So we just sort of made them better or improved them in a way, even though they were good since the beginning. Then we would say that our weaknesses has to do with this as well, since we all have really strong opinions on what we believe, and we will defend them and try to sort of argue and support what we're saying with facts. So it was really hard for us to find a middle point in between of what we were saying and agree on something. But in the end, this became a strength, since we could give our arguments different perspectives, and it was more of a varied point of view kind of thing. And then for our opportunities and threats and the skills that and talents that can be harnessed and what deficiencies can later destroy us, we would say that this sort of lack or complication of communication between us was really what made it the most difficult for us, because it is like how we worked was a two-pointed sword, since it could go really really well or really really badly depending on how well we agreed on something or how much the topics varied or the arguments varied because of the point of view thing. So it could be like really two far apart points of view in one same supporting the same thesis. So it could be or it could be something that could later destroy us as well. But in the end, I think, or we think that we managed to overcome all of this and use our skills and our strengths and our weaknesses to make a great debate.
Then finally, what can I say about what we learned and what we developed with our weakness and strength? And we had a good way of argumenting our perspectives. We could actually use the philosopher's scene in class and applying it in our perspective of art. But what was a bit a mess was the way that we worked collaboratively. We didn't actually do it. We just said what we have to do, and then it became a mess because things didn't have a real coherence. But it still we still do that. But I think it can become a strength because we know now how we failed in a way, and how we could not fail in the future. So yes,